Hi, today we have the pleasure of speaking with Mr. Nishok Goonasekera. He is the CEO of the Investment Banking Division. Hi Nishok.
Hi Madhurya, pleasure to be here.
Nishok is a highly experienced investment banking professional with over 15 years of experience in the global financial markets, having worked for some of the most reputable investment banks in London, Singapore and Hong Kong. So we have some questions for Nishok today to gain his insight on the investment banking industry in Sri Lanka. How does the investment banking industry in Sri Lanka differ to that in other countries, in your opinion, given your experience working in companies like JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley?
Well, I think Madhurya, the main difference is size, both in terms of the investment banks themselves and the client base and network that we have to operate in here in Sri Lanka. Banks here are much smaller. The last organization I was at abroad had over 80,000 employees and CAL has about 125. But I actually see that as a positive because what it means is all employees, whether they're junior or senior, end up having to think more holistically about the business, which in turn means a better experience for clients and a much stronger firm culture. In terms of the client base in Sri Lanka, I think it's really important to build personal relationships, not just business ones. I've had to rebuild my network multiple times between moving from London to Hong Kong to Singapore and back to Hong Kong. And it was really tough, but each time the landscape of clients was much smaller, which meant that the relationships I built were much stronger as well. I'm really looking forward to building my network now that I'm back home in Sri Lanka. And I've already started doing so. The last 2 months at CAL have been an incredible experience and I've met a lot of people both internally and externally that are very talented and I look forward to building on that.
What prospects do you see in the Sri Lankan investment banking industry and how do you plan to capitalize on them?
That's a good question. Well, I think the last few years have been really tough for both Sri Lanka and the investment banking industry overall with the Easter bombings and then COVID and now the sovereign debt crisis and the resulting poor macroeconomic outlook. But I think if you think more long term, this brings about an opportunity for investors. We at CAL have a large pipeline already of conglomerates that are looking to either streamline and focus on their core competency, or if they have extra capital, invest and expand their footprint. In addition to that, I'm looking to expand our foreign investor base and connecting my team with as many potential investors as possible proactively so that we can be ahead if and when things change, and I'm sure they will very soon, and Sri Lanka becomes an attractive place for foreign money to come and invest. I think finally, if I can mention a different point, there's lots of products that we can expand into that are currently not offered for clients. One off the top of my head would be in debt capital markets. We used to do a product called IRS interest rate swaps, which have died down in the last few years, and I don't see why we can't go back into that market in the near future.
All right, that's interesting. What prospects do you see in the Sri Lankan investment banking industry and how do you plan to capitalize on them?
Well, I'll talk about two different challenges, Madhurya. The first one I think is related to your last question, which is this issue around the IMF and the resulting domestic debt restructure and what that will look like, which means that a lot of companies aren't willing to pull the trigger when it comes to completing transactions because of this uncertainty. I think the only way it could be is to act proactively and line up as many investors, whether they're foreign or domestic, get them to meet clients if they have a specific company in focus that they're looking to acquire or invest in, get as much documentation signed as we can, and then be ready to act as soon as things turn, because I'm pretty sure it's a question of when, not if. I want our clients and CAL to be first in line when it comes to actually getting transactions done when the market opens up, because I think there'll be a very small window to transact. Everyone's going to be looking at the same companies, and I want to make sure it's us that gets the transactions done. In addition to that, I think acquiring and retaining talent is a big issue currently in Sri Lanka. Obviously, for a multitude of reasons, there's been a lot of migration, whether it's down to the rupee devaluation, increased taxation, high inflation, or just the uncertainty on the ground of what the future is going to be for employees at various firms in Sri Lanka. While that's understandable, what that now means is that all of us are left with much smaller teams and employees that have been headhunted by other competitors, and it's much harder to retain them. So I think it's really important for management to engage constantly with their staff and make sure everyone feels incentivized and appreciated for the work that they do. In addition, when it goes forward to hiring, I think instead of thinking just laterally, we need to look for people outside of just the investment banking industry, as long as their core values align with those of CAL's, and we think that we can mold them both technically and personality-wise into the people we want them to be at CAL. We've already managed to hire a few good people into CAL this year, one specifically into the investment banking team, and I'm sure going forward we'll be able to hire very good talent into the firm.
So that concludes our interview. So thank you for taking your time to speak with us and sharing your experiences and insights with us.
Thank you very much for having me. Pleasure.